Carroll bringing it forward. Thompson's making the run. Carroll hangs on to it though. Still Davy Carroll. Could go all the way here. Oh, what a goal!
I don't know what it is that makes me love you so. I only know I never wanna let you go. 'Cause you started something, don't you see? That ever since we met you had a hold on me. It happens to be true. I only wanna be with you.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Ringing the Blues, the official Wycombe Wanderers podcast. No match action this week because of the international break, but don't worry, lots to get through. We recap some playlist picks with Dan Udo and Matt Butcher, and we also take a look at the style of play for Wycombe Wanderers this calendar year. We've scored lots of goals so far this season, and many of you have noticed a different approach, especially towards the final third. Well, let's talk to Wycombe Wanderers fan and stats expert Duncan Alexander to get his take on what's been going on. Duncan, good to see you. How are you?
Hello. Yeah, good, thanks. How are you?
Very well indeed. Very excited as ever to talk to you about stats, but on the backdrop of Wycombe not only playing well, but getting good results.
Yeah, big time. I think everyone that's watched the games this season can see a style of play that's very different to maybe a couple of years ago, and one that's not only different but actually producing good results and plenty of goals. We obviously know how close Wycombe came to setting a new record, all-time top four tiers record of if they had scored that extra goal against Crawley, but it's still a decent start nonetheless.
Remind us of what that record would have been, because I think we're all aware of the 2 goals per game, but the actual record you're talking about, what was that?
Yeah, so they equalled a Manchester United record from the 1920s, 1926, 27, I think, where United did score 2 goals in each of their first, 7 games, but or 8 games. But then they lost 4-0 to Bolton in their subsequent match. So, I mean, beating Crawley 1-0 is better than losing 4-0 to Bolton.
Absolutely.
I think, officially. Yeah.
And it's a great record in the modern season, in this era, this very season. Manchester City and Wycombe Wanderers were the two sort of duking it out for scoring a minimum of 2 goals per game. And Man City, I think, fell the week before Wycombe. So we had the week's bragging rights across the whole country.
Yeah, I'm sure Pep Guardiola was fuming. I'm sure he was pinning it up on the wall at the Etihad. So yeah, no, it's nice to be talking about these sort of records, isn't it? After a few seasons when maybe different records were being talked about.
I'd like to think it was an addendum to the teams that have a 100% league record against Manchester City column. He could have put that next to Wycombe's name in there, maybe.
Yeah, I sometimes go on a City podcast. I know a guy that runs one, and he's very aware of that record. And I think in some ways City are quite proud of that record. It's kind of like a little bit of a an authenticity badge from their season in third tier. So yeah, I think there should be some sort of like trophy we play for every 10 years or something.
Absolutely. Well, they've done okay since then, so I'm sure
Yeah,
they've
they're
got
doing
over
all right.
it.
Yeah.
Right, what have you got for us then? What can you what magic can you shed upon the action you've seen so far?
Well, I think you could approach this in a few ways. I mean, I think it sounds pretty benign in a way, but like Wycombe's pass completion rate this season is like 73%, which is, not amazing in the grand context of sort of, your Barcelonas and your Manchester Cities, but it was regularly below 60% for a lot of the Ainsworth era. So I think, in those terms, that's a sort of proof of the change in style, and as we said earlier, the results have come with that. But yeah, I just think the threat in the team is coming from all over the shop, really. I mean, if you look at a metric like expected assists, which essentially is kind of adding value to each pass, like how likely is a pass gonna create a goal? If it's between 2 centre halves, not very likely. If it's a sort of threaded ball into the box, then yes, it's probably going to have a higher XA value. Now, it won't be a huge surprise to learn that Gareth McCleary is top of Wycombe's there with 1.8. But I think, interestingly, second and third are Dan Harvey on 1.3 and Aaron Morley on 0.8. And I think Morley's obviously played that really good deeper role, and we've seen a number of sort of incredibly exciting through balls from deep, which explains that. And I think Dan Harvey is a really good example of why you shouldn't really kind of judge players until at least a few months into their career, because I think he'd probably admit his first couple of games, admittedly against two very tricky opponents, but probably didn't go as well as he hoped. But I think the last few games, obviously particularly Bristol Rovers away, he's been absolutely tremendous. And yeah, I think he's offering the sort of creativity and progressive sort of passing from fullback that maybe we haven't had for quite a while.
And he's
Think of
doing it
someone like
And he's doing it in a four as well, because normally when you have a fullback or a wing back who are contributing, their position gets them on. But he's got his defensive duties as well, so he's combined the two superbly.
yeah, and I think people knew that when we signed him that he's played a lot of wing back in his career, and I think he is adept at both things. I think we're seeing that now. So obviously the club have talked about the new era using data, and data is a very kind of you can use it in a number of ways, and it can be a bit kind of post hoc to sort of say, oh look, this player's playing well, look at this stat. But I think the fact is that Dan Harvey's a sort of player that his numbers are good because he is creative, and we're sort of seeing the benefit of that.
XA is a sort of stat I can get on board with, because for years before things started to really sort of drill down into more minute detail, teams would often say, "Oh, we had 75% possession, we should have won the game." But I think the nail on the head here is centre backs passing it between each other for 15 minutes per match offers absolutely no goal threat. And so this XA has kind of actually started to say, no, actually, it's what you do with it as well as having the ball for the lion's share of the game.
Yeah, and there's other metrics as well. There's kind of expected threat and progressive passes and things like that. I think the point of data is that it's always evolving, and we've got to a point now where we do have some quantifiable qualitative metrics that actually do explain why teams are good. You're never going to be able to win or build a winning team purely off numbers, but it does kind of, I think, add to a manager's sort of body of evidence for what they're doing and how it's working. I think with Wycombe this season, they still have a kind of the speed of a direct side, but they are doing it in a very kind of like progressive way. I think some of the passing patterns we're seeing in the middle, I think someone like Morley really helps that. I know some fans have wondered why maybe Josh Scowen is playing a little bit further forward than maybe people think he should, but I think he offers that kind of like that work rate in industry further forward, which again opens that space up. And the other thing I think fans across the lower leagues do wonder about is the sort of passing it out the goalkeeper at the back. And I know that does divide opinion, but the reason teams do it is because when you get pressed by the opposition, the bit that makes everyone scared and worried that their team's gonna lose the ball, that obviously makes a load of space in the middle. And if you can break through the opposition press, which Wycombe have been pretty good at, then you suddenly got sort of a counter-attacking situation. And I'm old enough to remember the early 90s when teams' goal kicks were like 20 men stood on the halfway line and it was smashed up, and everyone, which was the style at the time, to quote The Simpsons. But yeah, I think the way that teams play now, we are getting more kind of counter-attacking through that sort of construction. And personally, I think that's the kind of more exciting sort of football to watch.
And we should also look at this over a sort of a period of time as well, because this is a huge shift actually from where we were for a very long time and a very successful time under Gareth Ainsworth. But this has taken a while, as I think, in hindsight, as to be expected. It's a big shift. But the results of the calendar year for Wycombe Wanderers have been excellent. So it's no huge surprise, actually, I think, for Wycombe fans or people who follow football closely, that Wycombe have started well. But it did take a period of time to get that balance right, as you say, between the purposeful possession and what you do with the ball and that style of play and implementing it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you should never get het up by pre-season predictions, but I was slightly surprised that most kind of EFL podcasts or magazines had Wycombe, I reckon, roughly around 13th to 15th in most previews. And and that didn't really add up for me when you looked at, like you say, how we finished last season, and then strengthened the squad and brought in more players that are capable of playing that way. So I think what's interesting now is that my old friends at Opta, they have a prediction model, which they now have for League One, and Wycombe are now the third favourites in the division. So basically, let me if I get it up here, Wycombe have got a 14% chance of finishing second, which only Birmingham and Lincoln have got higher than. So, that kind of show, and that's based on sort of underlying numbers and then stimulating the season sort of 10,000 times and seeing where everyone finishes up. So, to be in that position is maybe not that surprising for people involved at the club or fans, but I think it sort of shows that the underlying numbers are good and that the outside world is starting to take notice.
I mean, you've been involved in football data for many, many years. And data, it's not just Wycombe Wanderers that are talking about implementing data more. Clubs have been doing it for a little while anyway, Wycombe included, but data is becoming more and more important across the leagues. How do you feel about that as someone who's been on the dark side of data for some time?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean it's not that surprising. I mean, as you say, clubs have been doing it for a long time, and data can mean anything from sort of, the league table at its most basic through to very advanced bespoke metrics that clubs build to, get an advantage. Liverpool use sort of astrophysicists to sort of design passing models, and obviously they don't tell the players that. You then have to get a coach that can kind of translate that into football language. And I think that's probably where it has changed a lot. And you look at a manager like Matt Bloomfield, obviously he's got a lot of peers similar age. You look at someone like Russell Martin, former Wycombe player in the Premier League, and they're comfortable with both sides of it. And I think they can understand what the numbers are saying, but then they can translate that into football talk, and useful sort of coaching protocols. And I think that's where it has. There was a brief era where you might get some sort of stats guy stood on a training pitch, and yeah, I don't think footballers like that very much, and it wasn't very successful. So yeah, it's about kind of condensing it into football language, and I think that's ultimately what everyone wants, from fans to players to coaches to even people within data. It's kind of making stuff understandable and yeah, digestible.
Well, you as a journalist have done that as well. Even Luddites like me now are seeing stats and data brought to life. You've been doing it for many years in an entertaining way and putting it in a context for the normal person on the street to understand. So it's interesting you're talking about how now our footballers are accessing that.
Yeah, and football, I would say nearly every current contemporary footballer is aware or understands what data does and means for their career and their form and stuff. I think we had there was a famous story of Peter Schmeichel sort of gaming the running data when he was at Manchester United by the pro zone data by running around the penalty box when the ball was down the other end of the pitch. I think it's probably fair to say footballers have got a slightly more respect for the industry now than they maybe did 30 years ago.
So data is great because it's giving us all of these insights, etc. But it then also provides all the opponents with all perhaps the secrets of undoing a system. We're in a league campaign now. We're not quite at 10 games, the much fabled 10-game opening 10 games where we know what the league looks like. But we saw it with Huddersfield initially, where they started really well, and then all of a sudden have gone on a bad run. Can the data also provide the equipment for your opponents to unlock you?
Partly, but I think scouting and kind of match preparation is so good now across the leagues that it's just part of a bigger package. Like Wycombe will obviously prepare whoever they're playing against will prepare specifically for that. But I think obviously one thing this season with Wycombe is that the strength in depth means that not only can we rotate, but we can do it and bring in players and sort of change the style slightly. So I think Wycombe are probably in the best sort of horses for courses position that they've been in for a long time.
Yeah, that 10 we're approaching game 10, and it's Peterborough United, a team that have played a sort of more progressive style of football down the years as well. And we're seeing they're going through a cycle at the moment as well. So this one is going to be a really good indicator, I think, of where Wycombe are at.
Yeah, I mean, Wycombe Peterborough games are always memorable. I'm sure the Peterborough media community might still think Wycombe play in a certain way. Maybe we don't anymore. So that might be a pleasant surprise for them. I mean, obviously, yeah, the Wembley final still stings, but they've got a particularly bad record at Adams Park. And obviously, even on a really trivial note, it's the fixture that saw Jamie Bates and McSporran score 2 goals without the opposition touching the ball as well. So I mean, it's very, very rare for a Wycombe Peterborough game not to contain some sort of mad excitement. So yeah, should be a good one.
I don't suppose you've got the stats for the chances of that happening again. A team scoring twice without the opposition touching the ball. I'm guessing that's a bit of a long shot.
Yeah, I'm thinking in the 10,000s, if not higher, to be honest. I mean, I was there at that game. I remember trying to engage people in how rare it was, and no one actually cared. But then the Guinness Book of Records gets involved, and everyone's like, "Oh yeah, it's actually really good." But yeah, I mean, the fact it's never happened before or since shows that yeah, it was. I mean, the fact that yeah, that plus Jacobson's hat trick against Lincoln, which also is never going to be repeated. There's a ley line that goes through Adams Park that creates memorable moments.
You've seen history at Adams Park, so this must be great for you as somebody who covers all of football to talk about two historic moments, not for Wycombe, but just in the game in itself. And you saw them in the flesh at your beloved Adams Park.
Well, yeah, and also the famous ice game against Peterborough as well. 2-0, abandoned because the Peterborough players suddenly found the pitch icy, where Wycombe players didn't. And then the replay game ended with the same scoreline and the same scorers in the same order, which again is another freak occurrence. So, yeah, I expect something unusual on Saturday, I would say.
The freaky fixture. This is, we're approaching Halloween as well. This is all, to me, meaning that this Saturday is a must-attend game at Adams Park.
Very much so.
Any other predictions, not Wycombe related, but just for League One? Is there anything else in League One that you've noticed? Obviously, there's a huge amount of money in the division this season, and that we're not used to that level.
Yeah, well, I mean, Birmingham's captain obviously claiming that they were too good for League One shortly before they lost at Charlton was notable. I mean, Birmingham's numbers in terms of data are off the charts. They're like completing over 500 passes a game. I mean, we saw that when we played them. But it doesn't necessarily mean you're gonna win the league. I think the performance of the promoted teams is really impressive. We knew Wrexham and Stockport might be good, but Mansfield as well. So yeah, I mean, Wycombe know that from coming up a few times, it's not necessarily easy to settle straight back into League One, but they're all doing well, which I think is interesting. And yeah, you do fear for Cambridge this season.
The cliched momentum is big in sport. I mean, it is very big in sport. Is there any sort of data that can kind of quantify that? Because obviously the teams coming up have got that momentum, but it's a big step up from League Two to League One.
Yeah, it doesn't. There's no real pattern to it, and I think we've even seen with our friends from Oxford who've settled into life in the Championship surprisingly well, or they're doing all right. But yeah, it does. It does feel like across the leagues this season, promoted teams are doing quite well. Maybe not in the Premier League so much, although I think Ipswich and Leicester will stay up. But yeah, I think that probably does speak to, again, to loop back to what we started talking about, the data in football, and going up into a higher division now isn't necessarily such a leap into the unknown, because if a team has a recognised philosophy and playing style, they can just keep applying that and see where it goes. I mean, Wrexham play quite an old-fashioned sort of fairly direct 3-5-2, but it's working for them. So why would they change?
Absolutely. So I don't want to get ahead of ourselves here. If Wycombe were to make the jump up to the Championship again, perhaps that initial run of fixtures won't be quite as daunting or terrifying as it was a few years ago.
Yeah, well, hopefully there wouldn't be a global pandemic for starters.
That's very much hopefully.
Yeah, well, one of the classic hopes. But yeah, I think Wycombe were. It was a very strange season to sort of have to go up. I don't think the lack of fans did help actually in that initial run. It was almost like a sort of series of training matches against very good opposition, and then once Wycombe did adapt, obviously very nearly stayed up. Probably should have done. So yeah, I would be confident that the club could, settle in the Championship, mid to lower table at least in a season after promotion. But we've got to get there first.
Well, indeed, and it's a tough league to get out of. We don't need stats to tell us that. We just need to look at the results every week. Peterborough United this weekend. Then, can I trouble you for a stats-based prediction?
Well, as you said earlier, Peterborough are very good. Play decent football. I think I'm going to say this is going to have the highest pass completion rate of any Wycombe Peterborough game in football history. So I'd imagine both teams, over 75% probably. Wycombe came close to 80% in a game. I can't remember which one it was, but I was very excited. And then it just dipped to like 78.8 by full time, which was, sad for people like me. But luckily there aren't any people like me.
Always good to chat to Duncan. He just brings stats to life. Right then, playlist picks. We've not been able to include these on Ringing the Blues now for rights reasons because they stop us from playing the music. However, the chat so far this season has been excellent. We learned so much about our beloved Chairboys. We're recapping a couple from earlier this season. Let's start off with Matt Butcher. Butch, you well?
Yeah, all good, thanks. Yourself?
All good, mate. Looking forward to finding out about your musical choices. Are you a man of music?
Not massively.
It's a big responsibility being the DJ in the dressing room, right?
Yeah, it's too much for me. I'm probably too one genre. I probably don't suit everyone in the group, so I'll pass that on.
Luke Leahy was telling us that he fancies himself as a bit of a DJ. Should he be in charge of the jukebox?
For me, yeah. I don't mind his taste. Whether or not everyone agrees with that is another thing, but no, for the most part I like his music.
Yeah, you're going to have his haircut as well?
No, I don't think that's for me. No. You've got to be a special type of person to pull that off.
Right, what's your first song?
First song is Bohemian Rhapsody.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, Queen.
Okay.
One, I think is a really good song. This is the only song that doesn't really relate to football, actually.
Okay.
I really like the film. I actually probably watched that countless amounts of times.
Okay.
And I just think the song's got everything.
Oh, wow.
Bit of a long one for a pre-match.
Yeah, but it's got a lot of building as well, and it can get you going too.
Yeah, I think so. You can play it in any circumstance you want, I think.
There we are. You drive in with Oaksy, right?
Yeah.
I've got that scene in Wayne's World where when he kicks in, you guys both like headbanging in.
Yeah, especially before Voxy's had his coffee. It's pure music, and then we get into chat and we turn it down for the second half of Journey.
See, Voxy fancies himself as a bit of a muso as well, so does he sort of bore you about music on the way in?
Well, the first couple of journeys I thought I'm going to have to try and cater. So I went down the indie route and stuff that I knew he'd like. But now I just put the full shuffle on and anything comes on.
Well, I think this is the first time Queen has been used on this feature. So yeah,
it's a shame, isn't it?
You're a man of taste, Bruce.
Yeah. We'll see for the next two.
Right, introduce your first song.
Bohemian Rhapsody by Queen.
Well, that's a fantastic start. What's the second song?
Second song is by Thin Lizzy and The Boys Are Back in Town.
Wow.
That's probably the one song that the second I hear it takes me back to my first memories of watching football.
Okay.
In the stands, that used to come on every week. So as soon as I hear it, when it gets played in stadiums, I love it, and it just kind of makes me feel like I'm back in watching football as a fan for the first time when I was a kid.
Where was this when you were a kid?
I was at Portsmouth, so quite an old stadium.
Yeah.
The smell of burger bands and your standard sort of feelings come back as soon as you hear it. So whether that's good or not before a game, thinking about food and football, but yeah, that's why it sticks in my memory. When it comes in the car, that takes me straight back to a moment.
Amazing.
I can remember. So.
We don't often talk to footballers about what it's like to be a fan, because obviously for the large part of your life you haven't had the opportunity to go and do that fan experience, but is that a time you look back on fondly?
Yeah, 100%. I think that's why you love football, because you go and you get that emotion and feeling of the crowd, which is why in COVID it was so difficult, because that's what you play for, I think. Anyway, you play because you were a fan first. So yeah, that takes me back there, and it's a real fond memory for me.
And the other thing as well, then you must empathise with the fans in the standing as well. You've got that link. You know what it's like, what their journey is. Yeah,
100%. Like I said, that's why we all play the game. So I'd be watching it with my dad and my brother, and my mum at home, and they'd have all the same feelings that the fans will get now, and I would have had them as well. Obviously, look at it a bit differently if I make a mistake now. But yeah, I understand all the emotions. That's what we play football for. We don't play it for to not be emotionally invested. So yeah, I love that anywhere we go, when the fans can be involved and help get involved in the game.
And you must have played at Fratton Park now as a player more than once, I'd imagine. What's it like? What was it like to go and play at that fantastic old stadium?
Yeah, the first time was probably my favourite time for a long time when I was growing up. We walked out on the chimes when I could see where I could sit as a kid. I can't remember if that song come on actually, so I don't know if their playlist has changed. Probably has by now. But yeah, that was a great feeling to walk out where you still watch as a kid and to look back up at the section that you were sat in. Was a nice feeling.
Nice. Right, introduce your second song for us.
Thin Lizzy, The Boys Are Back in Town.
Two fantastic songs so far. We're on to your final track. What's it to be?
It is actually my initiation song, which I didn't do here. I'm not going to do it if you ask me. But it's Great Balls of Fire.
Oh.
Yeah. And I was debating which version to put in, but I think the Miles Teller version is probably a bit more crowd friendly, a bit more upbeat, so I'd probably go with that.
Wow.
Yeah, that's my initiation song that I did last time.
Initiation songs are huge in football, aren't they? Not just at Wycombe, but all clubs.
Yeah. It was a safer one, and it took me probably 4 or 5 goes at doing the other one. That was Smash Mouth All Star.
Okay.
Which was a lot safer, a lot kind of, you could be a bit more reserved and just shout loudly. But yeah, it's a big thing in football. Most teams do it, and I think it kind of gives you that, like, not talking point, but it gives everyone something to laugh at, because I'm not so good, and nor the majority. It's quite frustrating when someone's actually decent at singing that does it. But yeah, that's my initiation song. I thought I'd go a little bit more out there this time.
Excellent. So it's all about sort of the team bonding then, isn't it? Taking yourself out of your comfort zone and making those links.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's what you need to do in a football game. You're out of your comfort zone, you're with people that you might not have met, especially like I joined in January. You could join on a Friday and play on a Saturday.
Yeah.
So that's already going to be out of your comfort zone. So I think it's just promoting that, and then obviously giving a talking point for when you go down to breakfast the next morning and go, oh, what about that song, whatever. It's a nice little camaraderie.
Talk us through the mechanics. When do these ceremonies take place?
Well, you're normally thinking about it from the minute you leave one club to the first meal. And it's just a ting of a glass. So after dinner, you'll hear someone bang a glass.
And so this is on an away day, maybe?
Yeah, an away day before a game. Yeah. Normally before the first league game or a pre-season trip. The glass will get tinged, and everyone, no matter if you're singing or not, their hairs will stand up and they'll get that feeling no matter how many times you've done it. It doesn't get any better. And then I always get up first, so I shoot up on the chair if there's a couple of us doing it, because the worst thing in the world is to go after someone that's actually good.
So I've seen a few pictures and clips and stuff. So you stand on a chair, and I've often like things like spoons, you use microphones.
Fake microphone. You've got to say, introduce yourself, a little bit about you, a line, a joke if you want, and then just go straight into the song. Yeah, it can find a few out early doors.
No backing tracks, so just a cappella?
I think it's changed a little bit. It never used to be.
Okay.
Used to be pure a cappella. Right. But I think you probably are allowed music now.
Okay.
It depends what makes you tick a bit, really.
That's going to get out of hand. People are going to start bringing in backing bands.
I know, yeah. I think people have played the guitar before. Not that I've got it in me, but I just got a cappella, Stick to my strengths.
Well, this has been a fascinating insight into the world of the initiation ceremony. Butch, introduce your final song for us.
My final song is Great Balls of Fire.
Butch, it's been brilliant to get to know your musical choices and hear these stories as well. And I can just imagine you now at Fratton Park. How old were you?
I would have been, first game, 5 or 6 maybe.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And how old were you when you played there?
I would have been 18, 19.
What a journey.
Yeah.
Well, let's hope we're back in the championship with them soon.
Yeah, that'd be perfect.
Butch, see you on the pitch soon.
Yeah, thanks very much.
See, I told you we learned a bit about the players. Right, next up is Dan Udo. He's lit up the place with his smile and also his goals. And he didn't disappoint in this playlist picks. Over to you, Dan. Dan, how are you?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm very well indeed. I'm very excited to find out about your musical choices. Are you a man of music?
Yeah, I'll say I am. Feel good factor, chilled, and just anything that enjoy and can boogie to at the same time as well.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Do you use it to motivate yourself as well, or relax?
I'd say more to relax, because motivation's always high, and then it kicks in with the nerves as well. So try to balance it with relaxing tunes or feel good tunes. Yeah.
Okay, right. What's your first song?
My first song's Fleetwood Mac, Everywhere. Why? Because I used to be in the car school with the two of my old teammates from like Liverpool way, and they used to play Smooth Radio all the time. And you'd never ever think I listened to Smooth Radio, but sometimes I still find myself listening to it now. And Everywhere is just one of those songs that you feel good with. I play it before a match, and it just gives me a good buzz.
Smooth Radio and Magic FM, right? This is a game, this is a challenge. If you drive at night, I do a lot of driving at night.
Yeah.
If you alternate between those two those two stations, you're never more than 3 songs away from a Phil Collins track. Always works.
I'll give it a go next time I'm going home.
But yeah, Fleetwood Mac though, there's nothing wrong with Smooth FM or Magic FM, by the way.
Smooth FM is the best.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's perfect.
Not smooth. What's the Smooth Chill? Is a bit too slow for me.
Yeah,
a bit
okay.
opera stuff, but Smooth FM. Oh, can't go wrong.
Well, I wasn't expecting it, but I'm quite glad 'cause it's a great song and a great band as well. Do you know any others of theirs or?
Dreams.
Yeah.
It's only when that one. I know that one. What else do I know? I know another one. I can't remember. But that album, Fleetwood Mac remastered, something it's called. But it has Everywhere, Dreams. I can't tell you anymore. But another song I like. It has to be one of my first ones as well. Billy Joel.
Oh yeah.
Not Killed with a Kiss. Billy Joel. It's like, you don't remember me, do you? Something like that.
Oh, it's Billy Ocean, isn't it?
Is it Billy Ocean?
Oh no, it's Hot Chocolate.
Yeah, Hot Chocolate. That's it. Killed with a Kiss. Hot Chocolate. Yeah, that's another good one. But these are all smooth. So yeah.
You are Smooth FM, mate. I love this. You should do an advert for them.
I wish.
Right, Dan, introduce your first song.
First song, Fleetwood Mac, Everywhere.
Great track to start off with. What's your second song?
Second song, a bit more for, like I said, the boogie, the dancing, the vibes, and a bit of culture at the same time. There's a Nigerian artist called Ashake, and the song's called I Believe. And one, it's just the lyrics. I'm big on lyrics, big on the beat behind as well. And the beat gets you pumping, and the lyrics is just about having some belief in yourself, belief in what you're about to do, and most of the time it's playing the match, so just giving myself a bit of belief and pump at the same time.
This is a new song for me, which is why I love this feature, because I get to learn about this stuff as well.
Nice.
Is this like a party tune as well you can dance to?
It's an Afrobeat song, so nowadays a lot of the Afrobeats are all feel good factors. You feel like you're in the beach, in the sun, just relaxing, and if you wanted to shake a leg, you can.
I'm picturing like big family get-togethers, parties, that sort of vibe, right?
100%.
Okay.
Nice barbecue and everyone dancing.
Amazing. Sounds good. Are you a good? We know you're a good mover on the pitch.
Oh.
On the dance floor, do you have the moves?
No, I'm as stiff as. I think like when I'm like with my wife and my son, I might dance with my son, and then when it's party time, I leave it to my brothers and stuff. They can like move their hips and stuff. I can't. My hips are too stiff.
Is that because of the football training?
I think so.
Yeah.
Too much gym.
Too much gym is bad for dancing. Okay,
Yeah.
you can dance later in life. It's fine.
Yeah, keep your hips loose. It's the way forward.
Well, this is the perfect time to introduce your next song. What is it again?
Ashake, I Believe.
Right, on to your final choice already, Dan. We're flying through this.
Flying.
What's your third song?
Third song is a song called Yes and Amen. Obviously, as a Christian and my love for God, I always have to have something gospel in my playlist. It's Yes and Amen by Maverick City, just because it's another calming song, and I don't care what any footballer says, we all get nervous before games, and I need one of those tunes to really calm me down and to remind me how lucky I am to be a footballer and to be grateful and to do my best, really, yeah.
Faith is very important in football. You hear a lot of footballers from Premier League right the way into non-league referring to their faith as well. And you've just said there about the nerves and having the faith there. I think whatever's thrown at you, you've got your faith.
Yeah, and that's like, for me, that's one of the most important things that, like, my faith keeps me pushing, keeps me striving, makes me who I am at the end of the day, and makes me do the best I can do regardless of whatever I'm playing, whether it's a friendly, whether it's 5v5s on the training pitch or a big match day that's really important. Every game's the same because my faith tells me to work to be the best I can be.
So when would you go to this song? What mood would you need to be in to put this song on? What would you get from this song? What situation would you press play on this?
This song is more of a time when you want to, just reflect. I'm a big reflector. Is that the right word?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a big reflector on like my journey in football. Sometimes I think all of us need to in life really remember where you were 5 years ago to where you are now, just to, give you that little push to keep going. You never know where you can end up.
That's a good lesson for not just footballers, but for people in general, I think.
Everyone. Even if you're a binman today or something, and 5 years ago you probably weren't making any money, so now you are. So always feel good.
I'm going back to Smooth Affair and Magic. I'm going to use take that lyric. Never forget where you're coming from.
Exactly, and that's a big song. That is really a big song.
But it didn't make your top three.
No.
Dan, introduce your final song for me.
Final song is Yes and Amen by Maverick City.
There we are, Dan. That was painless, right?
Easy does it.
Wonderful to find out a bit more about you through music.
Yeah.
And we're looking forward to seeing you back out on the pitch soon, banging the goals.
That's the aim. Get some goals, get some people smiling, and get some wins on board.
We'll see you at Adams Park on Saturday.
Thank you.
Right, that's it for this week's show. Many thanks for tuning in. Big thanks to Duncan Alexander for his time as well. And if you've liked the playlist picks and you haven't seen it before, then subscribe to Wanderers TV. They're usually on pre-match drills every Thursday. We'll be back next week with news and views from the game against Peterborough United at Adams Park. Remember, it's an early kickoff, 12:30. See you there, and come on you Blues.